presentation på engelska.
Ja. Kan vi se. Sånn, vær så god. Vær så god, Vidar.
Okay, should I just start?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you for inviting me to this session. I will talk about Port of Bergen today, and I will go through a little bit about our, what should I say, journey regards to the environmental development the last few years. And then I will, a little bit after, go into the future challenges that we have in the port and in Bergen and the region in general, more or less. Port of Bergen has a vision, of course, like everyone else, and we want to be a future-oriented international green port. And with that vision, we are more or less demanded to talk and think green for everything we do in our business. And the background for this is, of course, known from the goals that was set in Paris in 2015, which everyone remember, and everyone has these figures in their visions and figures for the future. And this came up in 2015, and in 2016, the municipality of Bergen took some decisions where created a green strategy based on these UN goals, where they said that in 2020 we should have a 30% reduction in emission compared with 1991. But they also took a decision that in 2030 that Bergen should be a fossil-free city. And many people are discussing what is a fossil-free city. And for us, working with the port, the ship owners, cruise companies, and everyone think that this is only a matter to them and not other people in Bergen or the inhabitants. But a fossil-free city means no oil, no coal, no gas, and means fossil-free transport, fossil-free port, which is in our task, fossil-free warming, and fossil-free waste handling. And that's important for us to tell out to our customers dealing with shipping business, because this is much more than only the maritime business. It has to do with all people living and are working in Bergen, sort of. Many people in Bergen can remember a situation like this. It is a very special situation, happens from time to time. It's called inversion. Everyone here in this topic knows that. But this is a challenge for the city. Due to these 7 mountains surrounding the city, the cool air it will be warm on the top of the mountains and cold down in the valley. And then the emission has challenges to leave the area of city's centrum of Bergen. And especially in the winter time, 2015, 2016, that's become a very big challenge for us. And for the port, we got a lot of, what should I say, noise in the media due to this, because we had ships in our ports, and all the people wanted us to move these kind of ships out of city center. And this was in first week of January 2016. And during that week, we had, I think we had, we were in media 45 times during that week, in newspapers, local television, and also national television. And then we saw that we needed more facts around the ships in the city. We had to find out what is our impact for the emissions in the city. This offshore activity is very important for Bergen and for many suppliers in Bergen and for the marine activity. We know all the activity that is in the North Sea, and the ships staying in Bergen, they are here just waiting for operation in the North Sea. It's a lot of private-owned terminals surrounding Bergen, but they have so much activity with regards to unloading and loading process and services. So they will not allow these ships to stay in the terminal and just wait for operation in the North Sea. So the only option these ships have is to stay in our port on the berth, as we can see on the picture, or they have to be on the fjord and simply wait there. So Bergen is a very important place for these offshore companies. So what do we do when the city then challenge us, saying that they have to move out because there is emission of the city in the city? We made a research then with the Nansen Research Institute, and the facts actually ended up saying that the emission, even if it's very quiet in the city, and it is winter time, and we have a warmer sea temperature and the temperature at shore, then the emission will slowly go out on the seaside. So we go from city center and out to the sea. That is the situation when we have a inversion period in the winter time. So then we had the fact around these ships that our ships did not affect the city center as many people thought in a big way. But anyway, we decided to start to build shore power to connect these ships, so we didn't have emissions at all. We started that work already in 2015. This is the picture of the first shore power system that we built up. We had one customer, and that customer had one ship. It was a rough start for us because it was a heavy investment, very expensive. And of course, when the ship went out for operation in the North Sea, we didn't have any customers left. After a while, Equinor decided to make all the contracts based on shore power for the ships. So the ships, the offshore ships, were not allowed to get contracts by Equinor if they couldn't connect to shore power when they were at port. And that was an important, what you say, milestone for us, because then we got more customers and we got requests to build even more shore power systems. In 2018, we got a new situation, but this time it was in the summer period. And here you see a picture of the cruise ships staying at port. And we also can see that the smoke is coming actually directly out from the ships, and the emission will not disappear from the valley. When we had the research in 2015, 2016, on the winter time, it said that the emission will slowly go out on the seaside due to a warmer sea than it was on the shore side. In the summertime, we had an opposite situation, because then it's colder on the seaside and warmer on the shore side. And then we also get the opposite situation with the emission. So the emission, or the smoke coming out from these cruise ships, are slowly moving into the city center. So even if the city was not, didn't have a dangerous situation or a red situation with regards to total emission in the city, it was obvious that our impact for the city on summertime with the cruise ships were rather high. We have also a picture like this, like which is taken from Luxembourg area, where it is so obvious that these cruise ships are sending out emissions to the air. But the fact is, but it's very difficult for us to explain. But the pictures that we have here, the picture on the right side, is actually ships with scrubbers. The scrubbers are technology where they take away a lot of the emissions. But then we got, what should I say, a situation where the smog is coming out. But it is actually water, what should I say, water damp. Don't know what is in English, but it's so difficult for us to explain that there is not so much emission in that smoke, and we call it visual pollution. And that's what we see also in Geiranger and all the fjords, that you have this visual pollution from the ships. But in this case, it's actually scrubbers taking away a lot of SOx and NOx and other things in the emission. So it is it's very difficult to explain these situations. And then we got a new storm on media that the cruise ships has to leave the city of Bergen, have to pay to build up shore power connections, and all these kind of things. And this ended then up in a decision in the city council where we got a limitation of number of ships staying at port in Bergen. Until 2018, we could take in maybe up to 5-6 cruise ships per day, and we could have up to 12,000-13,000 passengers coming into the city center. That was a challenge for the city, of course. I would say that we had stretched that line too much, so we get that reduction from the municipality, and we got also a lot reaction from the inhabitants in Bergen. The law say there is a law here saying that the municipality actually cannot, that we should have such a limitation. So the municipality said that we have to search solutions with the cruise industry. So we went out to all the cruise industry and informed them that from now on there will be a reduction in number of ships, and we wanted to find solution how we could spread the cruise traffic more over the weeks and days and also months during the year. So we are more using the shoulder seasons, but it is of course a challenge because the guests for the cruise ships are in the summertime, and that's a common challenge for all of us. At the same meeting, the city council also decided that we should build shore power for all ships, not only offshore ships, but all ships, including cruise ships. And in 2018, I remember I was on an cruise exhibition in Miami in USA, and none of them was interested to build any shore power. That was not anything to talk about for them. So that was a big challenge for us. How should we do this? And then at the same time, we had to inform them that this was not only for cruise ships, and because we have all been through that round with the offshore ships. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a journey that we are all involved in, both as inhabitants in Bergen and for tourists and customers, ships, and everyone visiting us. We want to be a fossil-free city within 2030. So we had to involve them with that. So our question was, how should we be able to actually push the cruise lines into the direction of a greener technology, connect to shore power, and actually reach the goal for the city in 2030. And then we concluded that we needed some requirements. We need incentives and we need infrastructure. Infrastructure is shore power, but requirements and incentives, that is something that we have to build up. And to build up something to that, we have to know our facts. We have to know more facts about the emission. We have to find a system where we can stimulate to continuous improvement. And we need an incentive system where companies who don't want to do the investments or don't want to do the improvement, they have to pay for those companies who actually are taking the action. So we wanted our polluter pay principle. We have, during that process, we started already in 2016 with an index that we wanted to build up. Internationally, there is an index called Environmental Ship Index. That index shows how much emission you are sending out when you are moving from to and from the ports, when you are sailing in international sea. But there were no index which took the emission actually at port, and that was what we wanted to build up. So we took contact with the DNV-GL, which is what was called then, and we also connected some other ports in Norway, and we built up something called Environmental Port Index. And to be very easy in the explanation of what Environmental Port Index is, it is simply that all cruise ships coming into Bergen or other ports in Norway, they have to be registered into a register in DNV-GL or DNV, where they are putting in their engines. What kind of engines do they have on their ships? There's a lot of different technology on these engines, and there is also different rules when it comes to when they have built the ships. But all the ships, more or less, coming to Norway, have now registered all their type of engines into the database of DNV. So when the ship stays at port here in Bergen, they are simply reporting in what kind of fuel they have used, how much fuel, what kind of, how much energy in total they have used, and so on. And then this is going into a calculator in DNV-GL, and we get a score from DNV-GL back to us. And the score is depending on how environmental friendly is this ship, or has this ship been at the port stay here in Bergen. If they are on 0 in score, which is the lowest score, they have more or less, they haven't done anything. They are on the EMO level, which is a rather low level, and they have a lot of emission. If they have a score of 100, they have a 0 emission situation, like shore power, for example. So we get a score from these ships from DNV between 0 and 100, and then we actually have the facts around the emissions from each single ship. And when we have that score, we can put on an incentive system to that score. And the incentive system we have in Bergen says that the break even is at 40. If you have lower than 40 in a score, you will get a plus, or what should I say, a penalty in the harbor fee, because you have not taken the steps that they should have done. If you're on the other side, if you have a higher score than 40, you will get rebates on your harbor fee. And the difference between 0 and 100 is actually 170% in the pricing from the Port of Bergen. And that's a rather high amount, I would say. A ship on break even, which has 40 on score, that will be according to our price list. If they have half of that, let's say 20, then they will have 75% on top of our price list. And that's rather high pricing, as a cruise ship typically can pay up to 200,000 Norwegian kroner for a port stay in Bergen. And then they suddenly have to pay 150%, 150,000 more, because they've not taken the steps that we want. So that was very short about the EPI, and the EPI has been received on by the industry on a very good way, I would say. There is a typical comment here saying that TUI, for example, that they are saying that environmental steps are not only about shore power. It's a lot of small steps on board of these ships, which make them to reduce the number of emission when they are staying at port and when they are sailing. And suddenly they get a rebate from us as a port when because they have taken these steps. TUI, for example, that was one of the ships that you saw from the pictures, sending out a lot of smoke. They have scrubbers. They have done a lot of technology improvements on board. So they have actually a score of around 70, even without using shore power or other things. So they get a good rebate in Port of Bergen when they stay at port. The challenge for us is actually that the scrubber give them a better result on the EPI than if they turn off the scrubber. And if they turn off the scrubber, the emission is being bigger, but we don't have the visual smoke that we see in the city. And that is a challenge for us and for the cruise companies. A day like today, for example, where it's raining in Bergen, it is no problem to have a scrubber. But on a sunny day, like we saw in the picture, you will have this visual smoke over the ship, which is causing a challenge for us and to tell that out to the city. Okay, shore power. We have taken many steps since 2015. I started to talk about the offshore companies that stayed at our port. That is, here you can see the orange points where the offshore ships now can connect in Bergen. As you can see, it's a lot of them. It's 12, 13 connection points. We also have these gray here out in Skolten area. But when the cruise ships are here, we can of course not use them because it's not space for them. But we can actually connect up to 16, 17 offshore ships at the same time for shore power in Bergen. That's a big advantage for the port of Bergen. And we also discovered that shore power is not only about emission, it's also about noise. An offshore ship staying in Bergen has some kind of noise, making the hoses vibrating. It's I don't know what it is in English, but it is a very low tone, which can be a challenge for the inhabitants living close to the city. When we connected the ship to the shore power, they stopped the engine and that disappeared totally. So that was very good. Another thing is that since the engine stops, they can also do maintenance on the machines when they are in Bergen. And that's good for the supply industry in Bergen. So there has been much more activity around these ships due to shore power when they are staying here. We have now built up shore power also for cruise ships. We have used 150 million Norwegian kroner to build up these systems. We have got a good support of 50 million from Enova, the state-owned company. And we are now able to connect 5 different places in our port, and we can connect 3 ships at the same time. As you can see here, there's going a cable from Skolten area, and it's 1.6 kilometers over to the other side of the port called Jekteviken, and we can connect both in Jekteviken and in Skolten Bontlebo area. We have a total capacity of 48 megawatt, which is extremely much compared to many other ports. I must say that Port of Bergen has been a front runner when it comes to these green developments. It was Port of Bergen who started with this EPI system. Now there are more than 20 ports connected to that environmental port index. We have also been a front runner when it comes to shore power. It's no ports in Bergen, now in Norway, who have more connections than we have, and this new system with cruise is actually the biggest cruise park in Europe. We admit that we are lucky when it comes to shore power because we have green electricity very close to the port. We have high voltage very close to the port, and that's not the situation for all cities around in Europe and other places. But in Norway, they are building shore power now in Ålesund, in Haugesund, in Kristiansand. That system was the first system that was built. So during the next 2 years, I would say we are 5 or 6 cruise ports in Norway that has shore power. So what about the future? We are challenged there again. We are part of EU research together with Viking Cruises, where they are testing out hydrogen for cruise ships. The cruise ships want, of course, to sail into Geiranger Fjord and other fjords, where they will not be allowed to sail without zero emissions from 2026. So this is part of that project. And what they want to look into is if you can swap a hydrogen container into the ships. So it's not bunkering hydrogen, but it's swapping container into the ship. The same situation we have for a company called Samskip, which is sailing in Oslofjord area, but they are also sailing here to our port. But they are now building a new ship called Sea Shuttle, where they also will have hydrogen solution, and they will also have a swap solution with hydrogen. They have a plan to build that kind of ship also for sailing in the western part of Norway. So we have to prepare for these kind of ships coming to our area. Another challenge for us is, of course, what we see here in Bergen, these high-speed vessels for passengers. They also need to transform to zero emission, but it is a challenge to build up shore power system or other solutions like hydrogen, where they are bunkering or charging in the city center, where we have so limited space, and there is high voltage electricity. There can be hydrogen and solution and things like that. And how we are going to do that in the future, that would be a challenge for us and the owner of these ships, like ships here in our side. We have discussions with them how to do this, but it is a challenge. And another challenge for us is, of course, that the city of Bergen want to move the cargo port out of the city center. It's understandable. We are so close to the city. We are so close to the inhabitants. It's noisy. There's a lot of traffic, and they want to develop the city. We have seen this picture of the same area. So here it's the area today. This is how the city wanted to be in the future. And yesterday they came up with a new drawing saying like this. So and what do we see here is more or less no more ships at Port of Bergen. And that's of course depressing for us, if I can say it like that. So it's a challenge, but we also have to look at it as a possibility. It is fully understandable that the city want to develop. For us, it's just important that the port is taken well care of. So the city of Bergen still can be a maritime hub for ships and cargo and cruise ships and other things. We are moving the port out to Ågotnes area, which is 26 kilometers driving away from the port, and it's also away from the customers because the customers are rather close to the city center. So we will have a challenge when we are moving this cargo port so far away from the city, so far away from the main customers. But a lot of things are happening in the future now. One of the things is shown here. There are coming a lot of vessels, electrical feeder vessels. Many of them are going to be autonomous in the future. And that's something that we are diving deep into now in Port of Bergen. How can we distribute the cargo from the new big port in Ågotnes and into just a smaller, hub in the city center? Our main task is, of course, to move the cargo away from the road. We don't want it to be trucked all the way from Ågotnes and into the city area, but we want still to use the waterways. And this is something that we are discussing with the municipality. How can we still use the waterways into the city, even if they are doing their development? And if we are going back to this picture, we have agreed with them that these ships in the future will go into this this side here, in the left side on the Jätteviken area, such as we can get this cargo quickly into the city center and distribute it to the customers. But we also see a development for the trucks going by road. There will come also autonomous trucks, electrical trucks. There will be platooning driving, like you see here, where you have a manual driver in the front, but you have no drivers in the second and third trailer, so they are just following the first trailer. So we can actually have road trains more or less from Ågotnes when the roads are good enough for that. So there will also be a development for that. But when we are moving our cargo facilities out to Ågotnes, we also see that we have a possibility. We have a possibility to build up a hub. We can be a big hub, not only for the western part of Norway, but also for the local terminals close to Bergen. That is a position we cannot take today because we are in the middle of the city center, but we can take it when we are moving out to Ågotnes. And we know that for future, we think that distribution of energy is something which will be very important. For example, distribution of hydrogen in containers, ammonia, methanol, whatever in containers that can be, and batteries, of course, mentioned batteries as well. And as you can see in this picture, there's a lot of smaller and bigger terminals in very close to Ågotnes. So we want the feeder traffic to go into Ågotnes and distribute the cargo to, for example, Mongstad. Traffic to Mongstad today from Ågotnes has to go by truck via via Bergen, and we don't want that traffic through the city. It's the same situation in the south. We have some big terminals also in that area, and we also want to build up a feeder there. We also see new routes coming up. modern zero emission routes. Here is something called Tupeka. They are planning to build 2 ships like this, where they are going from Stavanger area and up to Bergen area 2 times per day. And that's an important step for us to build up a network of vessels along the coast, so we can also put in distribution vessels in our region. And then I have a movie.
Nils?
In the end here, just look one. Yeah, that was all for me. The last movie was, of course, what we want to build up out in Ågotnes area, with everything included. What I can say, it will not be like that, but it's important to see what we have to include to build our zero emission port out in Ågotnes. So with that, I think I will thank you for your attention.